Good morning. Good morning. So, we continue with our chapter today. Yesterday, day before, I had done the first two pages. Right now, I'll complete whatever is left of this chapter. So, you remember what the chapter was all about? About this person traveling in a train who is completely blind, right? And then another passenger comes, a girl, and he's trying to converse with the girl, talk to her, and at the same time trying to prove to her that he is not blind by looking out the window, by asking her questions, by even telling her how things were in the month of October. So, the last thing that he told her when we stopped the other day was, have you noticed, I ventured, that the trees seem to be moving while we seem to be standing still? Now, there's one line which has been cut out over here which says, that always happens, she said. Do you see any animals? So she knows that everything else seems to be moving and the person himself who's sitting in the train is still. So she says that always happens. And then she asks him, do you see any animals? No, I answered quite confidently. I knew that there were hardly any animals left in the forest near Dehra. Dehra was Dehradun. I turned from the window and faced the girl, and for a while we sat in silence. You have an interesting face, I remarked. Now, obviously, he was blind. He could not see her. How could he make out her face? But he still says it. You have an interesting face, I remarked. I was becoming quite daring, but it was a safe remark. Few girls can resist flattery. She laughed pleasantly, a clear ringing laugh. Right, so he's trying to flatter her, trying to make her feel good, make her feel nice about herself. And she laughs. It's nice to be told I have an interesting face. So she replies that it is nice when someone tells me that I have an interesting face because I am tired of people telling me I have a pretty face. Right? So she says, normally people always keep telling me that she had a very pretty face. But he was the first person who tells her that she has an interesting face. Oh, so you do have a pretty face, I thought. Right? So he tried his luck, right? Trying to get to know how she looked, and he gets to know that she is pretty as well. So you do have a pretty face, I thought. And aloud I said, well, an interesting face can also be pretty. So she says that you are a very gallant young man. Gallant meaning a very daring young man, a very brave person. But why are you so serious? She says you are a very daring person. Why daring person? Because as soon as she gets onto the train, he starts a conversation with her, tries to talk to her. Then after that, he just now remarks and tells her that she has a very interesting face. So that's why she calls him a very gallant young man. But why are you so serious? I thought then that I would try to laugh for her, for the thought of laughter only made me feel troubled and lonely. And why did he feel troubled and lonely? Because he was lacking something that other people had, that is eyesight. We'll soon be at your station, I said. Thank goodness it's a short journey. I can't bear to sit in a train for more than 2 or 3 hours. So she says, thank God it's a short journey. So more than 2 to 3 hours, I cannot sit in a train. This is what she says. And what about him? What does he feel? He says, yet I was prepared to sit there for almost any length of time just to listen to her talking. Right? So he says she could not sit for more than 2 3 hours, and yet he was ready to sit with her for as long as it would take just to hear her continue talking. And then he describes her. Her voice had the sparkle of a mountain stream. As soon as she would leave the train, she would forget our brief encounter. But it would stay with me for the rest of the journey and for some time after. Right? So he knows that as soon as she leaves, right, she'll at once forget that she had met a man on the train. He says, but me, he says, I will not forget her, neither, no, not forget her for the rest of the journey as well as for some time after. Sometime after meaning, matlab, he would not forget her for some time. The engine's whistle shrieked. The carriage wheels changed their sound and rhythm. The girl got up and began to collect her things. Right? So all this indicates that the train was coming to the station. I wondered if she wore her hair in a bun or if it was plaited. Perhaps it was hanging loose over her shoulders. Or was it cut very short? So he says, I wonder. Now, he's just trying to imagine whether she had long hair, whether it was plaited or like a bun, or whether she had short hair. So he's imagining, thinking. The train drew slowly into the station. So, slowly, the train enters the station. Outside, there was the shouting of porters and vendors, and a high pitched female voice near the carriage door. That voice must have belonged to the girl's aunt. Right, so a lot of noise at the station. Vendors shouting, porters over there. Now, vendors are people who sell things at the station. Like you have the chai wala, you have the biscuit wala, the bun wala, the pakodi wala. They're the vendors. Okay? Porters are the coolies who carry the luggage. And then he hears a very high pitched female voice and he realizes that who is this woman? She is that aunt of that girl who had come to receive her. Goodbye, the girl said. She was standing very close to me, so close that the perfume from her hair was tantalizing. See what's written tantalizing? Making one want something that they cannot have. Right? So obviously, he wanted the girl to sit with him more, to talk to him more. But her station had come. I wanted to raise my hand and touch her hair, but she moved away. So he said, this is what he wanted to do, touch her hair. But the girl moves away. Just 1 second. Only the scent of perfume still lingered where she had stood. Right, so the only thing that remained now in that compartment was the smell of her perfume. There was some confusion in the doorway. A man getting into the compartment stammered an apology. Stammered meaning now this girl was going and someone else was getting on into the same compartment. And whoever that person was, he apologizes. Then the door banged and the world was shut out again. I returned to my berth. The guard blew his whistle and we moved off. Off meaning we continued our journey. Once again, I had a game to play and a new fellow traveler. Now, what was the game? A conversation to begin with someone who had got on to the train. The train gathered speed, the wheels took up their song, the carriage groaned and shook. I found the window and sat in front of it, staring into the daylight that was darkness for me. So he says the train started, the wheels started moving, the engine started, right? And he went and sat next to the window. It was bright outside. He was looking outside, but he says it was all darkness for me because he was blind. So even though it was bright outside, for him it was just one color, that was black. So many things were happening outside the window. It could be a fascinating game guessing that went on out there. So, so many things were happening outside, but he could not see what was happening. So he said it was like a game when you don't know what's going to happen in the game. Right? You play a football match, you don't know in advance who's going to win. In the same way, he's saying so many things must have been happening outside. People must have been arguing, people must have been fighting, people must have been crying. At the railway station, this is what you normally see. People selling things, people running also, catch the train. But he says he could only guess. The man who had entered the compartment broke into my reverie. Reverie meaning he was dreaming. The blind man was dreaming all these things. So the man who had entered into the compartment broke into my reverie. Broke meaning interrupted. While he was dreaming, this new passenger interrupts him. And what does he say? You must be disappointed. I am not nearly as attractive a traveling companion as the one who just left. So the man speaks to the blind man and he says that you must be very sad that now I have come and the passenger before me was such an attractive, such a pretty looking girl. So he says she was an interesting girl. Now remember, there was this question in his mind that her hairstyle, what kind of hairstyle she must have had, long hair, short hair, in a bun, or whether it was plaited. So he says, can you tell me, did she keep her hair long or short? I don't remember, the passenger says, sounding puzzled. It was her eyes I noticed, not her hair. So the passenger says that while he was getting onto the train, he was the person who stammered an apology because he must have either bumped into her or she must have bumped into him. So he says it was her eyes I noticed, not her hair. She had beautiful eyes, but they were no use to her. She was completely blind. And then he asks, the passenger asks him, didn't you notice? Right? So, ironically, one blind man was talking to another blind girl. Right? So, all the pretending that he was doing, trying to look out of the window, telling her that she had a very interesting face, all the pretending was of no use because that girl as well was as blind as this man. That is why when her parents came to reach at the station, they were instructing her. They kept her luggage for her, right? And that is why she had another aunt who had come to receive her from this station as well. So, a very nice story, interesting story, and a sad story as well. I hope you guys liked it. Oh, let me tell you one fun fact. The fun fact is, I do not remember which class, but as most of you know, that even I am an ex-student of St. Francis College, and when I was in school, I remember doing this story as well. I don't remember which class it was, but it must have been somewhere year only 8, 9, or 10. where I had done this story as well. So when I was reading, now the books have changed. So I was reading the chapters and I came across the story. I made up my mind ki because I had done the story and I had found it very sweet, very very nice. And Ruskin Bond being an Indian author, so I decided ki you guys should also study this chapter. And it's not a very tough chapter. You don't have many people, many characters, just two important characters: the blind man, the girl, and the train. Three things that you need to know in this chapter. So I hope you like this chapter. It was my choice. And we finished two chapters now. As for the question answers, I'll do it the same way like I did for the previous chapter, the shoemaker. I will write down all the answers and as a Word document, I will post it on the classroom app. Right? What will you guys do? You already made, I hope you already made your 10 sentences. There were only one or two meanings. So you guys have nothing to do as such. Tomorrow I'll post the answers to these questions. So you just keep checking from time to time. Right? And we only have one more thing left in literature, that is a poem. And after that we'll switch to language. We'll continue with our language syllabus. Right? So I'll catch you guys in a day or two with all the question and answers. Try and do the reference to context. Try and do those yourself. Those are very small little answers, so that you can do yourself. Even for the previous chapter also, you have to do the RTCs yourself. No need to do it in the copy. Copy may only the word meanings, sentences, and the question answers. Right, so I'll catch you soon. Till then, look after yourselves. Look after your brothers, your sisters, your grandparents, your parents. Right? Keep everyone happy and stay safe. Till we meet again. Bye and have a nice day.